Hey everybody, welcome to my new weekly show, the Bublitz Briefing. Got mixed up with my entertainment company, but I hope everybody can hear me. Thanks for tuning in. This is going to be a weekly recap and what's upcoming. Just a little new show of what's coming up for Dan Bublitz Comedy. This is the first episode, so thanks for tuning in. We got a few viewers here, people checking it out. I do appreciate that. Coming in and tuning in today on this fine Tuesday afternoon. I was going to try to do this last night, but I got busy doing some stuff, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and I didn't get to it, so I apologize for that. I had to change the time. But I'm going to try to keep it consistent and do this either on Sunday evenings or Monday evenings, depending on what my schedule is like, what the tour schedule is like. And if you've been following my comedy, you know that I've been on tour quite a bit. Hopefully there's no interruptions today because I am currently in a hotel room because that's where I'm staying is in a hotel. I'm temporarily homeless. But the good news is I'm moving to a new house coming up here in not a couple weeks, next week, 1 week from today. We're moving into our new house in Loveland, Colorado. So that'll be huge because I'll be able to set up the new studio and I'll be able to broadcast with full production quality as opposed to right now with very minimal production quality. I'm just using my camera on my computer and you can see my earbuds. So, and I actually should probably have this one up here so you can hear me better. So yeah, hopefully everybody can hear me all right. And we're going to get going. The main thing to do with this Bublitz briefing is I'm going to talk about my shows that I've been on, where I'm going, upcoming shows, behind the scenes of my comedy career. And thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to talk about, like I said, I'm going to try to do this weekly, but since this is the first one, I'm going to go back a couple of weeks because I've been very busy on the road the last couple of weeks. And I want to talk about where I was at in the shows because they have been fantastic. I've been all over. I've been touring all over the country. One weekend, I did 4 shows in 4 different states, which was really cool. And that's what we're going to talk about first. A couple weeks ago, I was on the road. Sorry, my dog decided he needs to bark because we're in a hotel room. So I do apologize for that. That's going to happen here. In the future, it won't. But anyway, I want to talk about the shows that I did. As soon as my noisy dog shuts up. Gizmo, hush. Nobody's out there. Hush. Sorry about that for the people watching. Yes, that's what happens when you're in a hotel and people walk by your room. Your dog goes nuts. But anyway, back to this. We're going to do it. I want to talk about some of those past shows. 2 weeks ago, I was on the road. I started a 4-day tour across 4 states. I started in Laramie, Wyoming. I performed at the Roughed Up Duck Saloon, and that was a lot of fun. I want to do a shout out to Kyle Coolseth, who helped me. He put me in contact with Caroline Harkin, who put the show together, and it was a fun show. I didn't know how it would, how the show was going to be because it was a Goodwill donation type of show. Hold on one second. I don't know. Sounds like somebody is knocking on my door. Okay. Well, this is the hotel life. So, see, we got to go check the door quick because I don't know. No, thank you. You as well. That's great. Okay, that's great. I'm back. Sorry about that interruption. Apparently, housekeeping decided they needed to check if we needed housekeeping, even though we did not sign up for housekeeping. In the future, that's not going to happen because we'll be in my own studio and I won't have these interruptions. Yeah, so we're talking about Laramie, Wyoming. It was a great show. I also want to give a shout out to John Poland, who is Caroline's roommate, because they let me crash at their place and it was cool. And Caroline has a sweet dog that is so adorable. He even sings with John because John's a musician. And after the show, we got to hang out at their place. John played some music, and Caroline's dog sang with him. It was great, kind of like my dog singing right now, because apparently when you want to do something live like this in a hotel room, everybody has to go nuts around you. It's pretty entertaining. I hope you guys are entertained by my frustration of this. All right. So from there, I went to Omaha, Nebraska. I got to perform at the Reverb Lounge. It's a very cool venue. They do a lot of live entertainment, mostly music, sometimes comedy. It's great. I got to open for my good buddy Zoltan, who's a fantastic comedian based in San Diego. If you don't know who Zoltan is, please go check him out. In the future, too, when I'm doing these, I'll have links to some of these people that I talk about so you can go follow them. Right now, this is the first one. I'm in a hotel. I have very poor production quality right now, but it's going to improve. I guarantee you that. Also want to give on that show, I got to perform with Michael Harrison. He jumped in. He's another fantastic comedian based in New York. He happened to be passing through Omaha. Zoltan gave him a guest spot, which was really cool, and that was fun to see him perform. And a shout out to Emily and Ryan Chilson. They're two friends of mine from high school that came to the show. They come to a lot of my shows in Omaha, and they let me crash at their place when I'm traveling through, which is great because it's always good to save money when you're on the road. Then after that, I drove up to Corona, South Dakota, or to perform at Shady Beach Grill, which is a fantastic dinner club that sits on Big Stone Lake, just outside of Millbank and outside of Corona, obviously. And that venue, oh my God, that's an amazing spot to perform. The show was pretty much sold out. The food there is amazing. The people that run the venue, they keep improving it to make it better and better. I performed there a couple of years ago. I opened for another comedian there. And this time I came back as a headliner. But it was cool because when I performed there before, the showroom was basically kind of like, it kind of looked like a banquet room. It wasn't that fancy. And now it's very fancy. They put up curtains and lights and all kinds of cool stuff in that room, which is great. So that was fun. Tom Chilstrom, he's another fantastic comedian. He opened for me. We had a good time because then after the show, we went to Watertown where we were staying, and we went out for just a little bit. We didn't have a lot of time to go out because I was having some car trouble, so I didn't make it back as fast as I wanted to. I ended up having to get my tire repaired. It's a good thing it didn't go flat. It was a slow leak, but that happened. But it was cool because afterwards I got to hang out with some friends. Actually, I used to own a comic book store in Watertown, South Dakota. I don't know if you know that about me, but some people that used to hang out at my comic book shop when they were children, who are now, old enough to drink, and which makes me old, wanted to meet up. And so I met up with them and we had a drink, and that was cool. So shout out to Ted and Charlie Dravecki. Always great to see those two. They've grown up quite a bit, and it was great to see them and catch up with them. Then on the following Saturday, I performed in Lake Park, Iowa at Gunderson's for part of the Pub and Grub comedy tour, which is a fun comedy tour. They do shows all over, mostly the Midwest, but a lot of bars and restaurants and grills they do shows. And Dog books those, and they're always fun to go do. So I performed in Lake Park at a place called Gunderson's. Joe Christensen, fantastic comedian out of the Twin Cities, featured on that show. He did great. I didn't feel as good about my set. I had good spots within the set, but it was also a late show, and I feel like the audience kind of got tired the later we went. And it could be because they were drinking all night, so they might have been a little tipsy as well. But that was great. Then I came home. I drove home back to Denver, or to my hotel, because that's where I'm living. And Yes, Jeremy just commented. He's watching. Thanks for tuning in. He said his shows, it's like comedy boot camp in a lot of ways, and it can be. He's not wrong. They're a good way to get a real feel for working the road, doing the pub and grub comedy tours, not just the pub and grub, doing shows in general are good boot camp. You learn a lot, but the fun thing about doing shows like that is you get to meet a lot of really cool, interesting people, and you get to go to interesting places that you probably wouldn't normally go to if you weren't doing comedy. Honestly, if I wasn't doing comedy, half the places I go to, I don't think in a million years I would ever have a reason to go. Lake Park, Iowa, until I booked this gig, had no idea where it was, and it's not even that far from Sioux Falls, where I hung out after the show. That's where I stayed, is in Sioux Falls, because I have some friends there. But it's cool to do those kind of gigs because you get to go to all these really cool small towns, meet all these interesting people. Uh, but then I came back from Sioux Falls the following Sunday, and then we're going to skip ahead to some previous shows. I got to do my first, well, I guess it was technically my second showcase in Denver. I performed at Beer Works in Denver, which was great. A couple of people that run that show, um, uh, Matt Kobos and Corey Healy, really funny. They hosted together, and I laughed so hard. There was only two people in the audience, but I had a fun time. It was one of the funnest shows I've done for two people. They made it so much fun. And Brent Gill, who's a great comedian out of the Denver area, he goes back and forth between Denver and LA. He's super hilarious. I met him like years ago, so it was fun to see him again and watch him perform. He did some great comedy. He did some great bits, new stuff that he was working on about performing at a Christian function that he didn't realize it was a Christian function. He just thought it was a corporate gig, and he has a great bit about it, and it was great. And then last weekend, I was in Aberdeen. I performed at Heartland Casino and Event Center in Aberdeen, South Dakota, which was such a fun show. So many people showed up. I was a little skeptical about it because it is a free show, and when shows are free, you never know what you're going to get because the audience isn't necessarily vested in the show. So sometimes when people come up to a free show, they're disrespectful. They talk. They do all those things. They're not vested. They don't care about the show, whatever the reason may be. But this audience was there for comedy, and it was packed. They had to turn people away. That's how many people came to see me. I would love to say it was because of me and that I'm so hilarious, but it's not. It's because John Boone, who's a fantastic comedian and trivia host in Aberdeen, he has been trying to promote comedy and bring comedy to Aberdeen for the last 5 or 6 years, and his hard work is paying off. He's got a great relationship with this venue. The owners of that venue were all super, super nice too. I can't wait to go back. The venue is just really cool. There was the background is painted like a train station. There's like a mural of a train, and then the walls decorated as a train station, like it looks like a real train station, which was cool. And I had a good time there. Sold a lot of merch too. That was fun. And then afterwards, I got to hang out with some high school friends, and that was awesome. We stayed out way too late, and but we had a good time. It was great catching up with everybody. That's another fun thing about traveling as much as I do doing comedy. I get to see old friends here and there, and that's always a fun time because you get busy in life and you live in different places, and it doesn't always work out to go see these people. And then finally, after that, I did a show, another show that was a pub and grub show in Kimball, South Dakota. I performed at Club Vega, and that was a cool venue as well. It's amazing because they do all kinds of entertainment there. They do music and now comedy, but they also put on plays there. They have a small theater group, and I always find that fascinating when smaller towns have have a community that supports the arts. I think that's so cool because I think as a performing artist, I think the arts are important, not just comedy, but I think all platforms of performance art are important and they should be supported. So I think that's cool that they have a great great community and a lot of support for the arts there in Kimball, South Dakota. You wouldn't expect it because it's a small town in South Dakota, but it was great. Derek, he's somebody that used to go to open mics in Sioux Falls, that knew me from when I was doing stuff in Sioux Falls. He was an old college and friend of college mate and friend of Zach Dresch, came to the show, and that was cool. And then my friend Joe Story and his girlfriend Yolanda both came to the show, and with Yolanda's parents, and that was cool. So I got to see more friends at another show. So it's cool that friends are coming to shows, and I'm getting to catch up. And they were great. And yeah, Jared Dog says that Club Vega is a diamond in the rough, and he's not wrong. It really is. If you're ever just passing through, Kim, if you're doing that I-90, you're traveling from Rapid City going east, or maybe you're traveling west on I-90. If you run through Kimball, go to Club Vega and have some food. Their food was absolutely amazing. I had a ribeye Philly sandwich, and it was absolutely amazing. I was so full. I even went back for breakfast the next day, and the breakfast was just top notch. And he says they loved me. I'm glad they did. I loved them too. They were such a fun place. That was a fun show. So that's where I've been the last few weeks. Those are the shows that I've been doing. I do have some upcoming shows that I want to talk about. Well, actually, I only have a couple right now that I'm going to talk about. Here in this week, I'm flying to Minneapolis on Thursday. I'm going to be spending some time up in that area, mostly just hanging out. I have one show at Lee and Jim's Lincoln Lanes in Murrell, Wisconsin, which is just north of Wausau, Wisconsin. Tom Chilstrom is coming with me to open up. If you want to go to that show, you can get tickets. They're probably still available. Um, they're probably still available, but you just go to their website and check that out. Like I said, in the future, I'm going to do better planning, and I'm going to have links so I can post it in there. But right now, I don't, because I didn't do as much planning as I wanted to, because it's kind of a last minute idea that I had. Scotty says hello. Hey, Scotty, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. But yeah, on Friday, I'm going to be at Lee and Jim's Lincoln Lanes, and I am trying to get to the link so you guys, I can post it. Here we go. There we go. I got the link. I'm going to post it in the comments for everybody, so you can, if you're in that area or you know people in that area, come say hi. Say hi to me. I'm doing a show there. And that's all I have coming up for that week, is I'm doing the one show in Merrill, Wisconsin. Then the following weekend, I'm going to be back in Sioux Falls at Great Shots. It's a golfing place that has started doing monthly comedy shows. Their first show looked fantastic. Casey Flesh, who's a comedian out of Minneapolis, he did their first show, and it looked great. Looked like they sold it out, and they're going to do a monthly. Sean Leary produces that. He's a comedian producer out of LA, originally from South Dakota. Also runs a fantastic room in Brookings, the Leary Comedy Room at Wooden Legs Brewing. Definitely go check them out if you're ever in Brookings, South Dakota. I'm going to post a link as well for that show here in the comments. Boom, there we go. We got it. So that's what I got coming up. February 25th, Lee and Jim's Lincoln Lanes in Merrill, Wisconsin. And then March 4th, I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota at Great Shots. So if you're in any of those areas, go ahead and come to those shows. And let's see. Nomadic Poker is asking, are you going to be dodging golf balls while telling jokes? It depends on whether or not they like my jokes or not, I suppose. I would rather they throw to Rotten Tomatoes probably than shoot golf balls at me. Golf balls sound more painful, but I better be funny. If I'm just funny, then we won't have to worry about them throwing them golf balls at me or hitting them at me. So that's what I've been up to on the road, what I got coming up. I do have a couple updates that I want to talk about too regarding my podcast. I have the Art of Bombing podcast and the Submerged podcast. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Um, the Art of Bombing podcast is going to be coming back here very soon because I now that I've the big announcement is we finally got a house. We're moving into our house next week, next Tuesday. I'll be able to set up my studio again, which will be great to have the studio set up because again, I can do a lot more stuff professionally instead of like an amateur in a hotel room where the housekeeping interrupts and gets my dogs all riled up, and I have to go leave to see what it is because they're persistent. But that'll that'll go away. Um, but anyway, yeah. So the studio's coming. That means we're going to be bringing back a lot of the podcasts. A lot of my podcasts have been very sporadic right now, and that's because I haven't had the great space to be doing, between poor internet and being in the hotel. Just don't have the space to do it. But if you're a fan of the Art of Bombing podcast, you know that Josh Shirley joined me as a producer and co-host, and we've got a lot of great plans. Once I'm in the new place and the studio set up, we're going to be going full force with that podcast. We're not only are we going to be doing the normal Art of Bombing podcast, we're going to be doing some watch parties, and we're going to be doing some spin-off shows and all kinds of other great content that we're going to be doing in addition to the main podcast. So definitely check that out if you're a fan of the podcast. Be ready for that. Now, my other podcast that I have, Submerged Pod, if you listen to that podcast, I have some unfortunate news for you. I still have a handful of episodes in the bank. I have not released an episode in a few weeks. I haven't released an episode since I moved to the Denver area, and that's because, like I said, I don't have my studio, so I have been haven't had the space to do what I need to do. So I haven't released a new episode in about a month. I have about 4 or 5 episodes in the bank that I will be releasing once I get the new studio done, and that will complete season 1. And I do think that it is going to be the end of that podcast. I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed the conversations that I had with it. But I'm going to focus more of my time back on the Art of Bombing podcast because we're going to be doing more stuff with that, more content that we're going to be building with that. And I'm going to be doing the Bublitz Briefing as much as I can as well. So I've got a lot of other content coming out. And so since there wasn't as much interest in that podcast as I had hoped, it'll still be out there once it's finished, but I think we're only going to do 1 season of that podcast. So for those of you that have been following Submerged Podcast, I really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting. Your support always is great and so much appreciated. So that's what I got going on with the podcast. A new update, my album, Strangers in My Basement. You're probably, if you follow my career, you know I'm releasing an album. I've set up a Kickstarter campaign so people can support the project by pre-ordering. Essentially, the Kickstarter is a way for people to pre-order the album and to help cover some of the post-production costs. And I'm going to post a link to that in here too. It's great. So far, the campaign has already got 7 backers. We've raised almost $300. It's still a long ways to go. I'm trying to raise $4,000 in pre-sales so that the goal is I want to have it pressed in vinyl. It's going to be a limited run in vinyl. So if you back the project with the level where you get the album, it's going to be very limited because we're only making 100 albums, so it's going to be a limited edition. And then of course the album will be available digital. It's great. Oh, I got 8 backers now. Somebody else just backed it. Oh, that's cool. Oh, here we go. We got this is you got me and 8 now. That's awesome. Thanks, Scotty. I really appreciate the support. And can I get it on 8-track? I don't know. Do they still make 8-tracks? If I could, I feel like 8-track would make that very, very expensive. Uh, that's, yeah, I don't know. That would be funny, though. to do it on 8-track. And this is just an off-topic situation here and not related to anything, but somebody sent me a thing yesterday about, it's just weird that you mentioned 8-tracks there, because somebody sent me a message and asked if I had ever heard of 8-track porn. Apparently that was a thing back in the day, and I don't know why they were asking me, because I don't know why they chose me to talk to about, but whatever, they did. But honestly, I hadn't heard of it, but I guess it's a thing. Am I surprised? Absolutely not. Not at all. There's just so much weird stuff out there anyway. You're welcome for that. I hope you I hope you go find some and enjoy it. And we want it on mini disc. Mini disc is probably easier to do than 8-track. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. The other thing, some other content that I do have coming up that I'm hoping to put together once we're moved into the new place is, if you know me very well at all, you know that I'm a big fan of comic books. I read a lot of comic books. So I'm going to start doing some content where I'm reviewing, probably like TikTok videos and things like that, maybe even for YouTube, where I'm going to be reviewing and talking about some of the books that I'm reading, kind of like it'll be recommendations, I guess, if you will, what I'm reading, plus little reviews of what I'm reading. So maybe it won't be a good recommendation, but I'm going to be talking about some of the comic books that I'm reading, what I'm into, what I'm currently reading, and things like that. A couple things that I do want to recommend if you haven't watched it yet, go watch Peacemaker. It's a funny show. I don't care if you're into superheroes or not. Honestly, I have not watched the new Suicide Squad movie, so I wasn't as familiar with this character, and but I decided to watch it because the previews looked really good, and I loved it. And I see they got renewed for a season 2, so go check out Peacemaker. It streams on HBO Max. No, they're not sponsoring me. I just love the show. And then another book an audio book that I've been listening to. I say reading, but I've been listening to. I'm almost done. And my friend Cameron, an old high school buddy of mine, suggested it. It's called American Nations, and it's a very good listen, or it could be a very good read if you choose to read it. I would go. It's about the history of America, as specifically to the regions, and kind of why. It kind of gives an explanation of why people are the way they are, based on where their origins are from Europe and the rest of the world. And it's a very interesting book. It's definitely puts things into perspective with the current state of the world, I guess. So if you're into the politics and history and things like that, it is a good book. And then we see Noel Comics. Time to start making some more comics, brothers. Yes, I don't know. I would agree. Make more comics. I want to. That's one thing I'm going to work on as a comic myself. Oh, so the president is live right now. The president is literally competing with me, and that's because we might be at the threat of World War III. He's probably got priority over me. And get it. But then a couple other comic books I'm not going to do a review yet of, but they will be in my reviews. But if you are into comic books, check out Snelson. It is a comic book about stand-up comedy. It is like a satire about cancel culture and comics that don't care about being better people. It's pretty good so far. It was a pretty good book. There's only 4 issues, I think, 4 or 5 issues. Impossible Jones is another great comic book to check out. The art is great, fun stuff. And one of my favorites is Army of Darkness 1979. If you loved Army of Darkness and you love the movie Warriors, you would love this comic book because it kind of has a Warriors feel to it. Ash goes back into time to 1979, spoiler alert, and he's dealing with gangs where it's very similar to Warriors. So go check those things out. Those are my recommendations and everything. All right, that's going to do it for this. I guess I know people have been commenting, and I appreciate it. And yes, thank you. I'm glad you would rather watch me than watch the president. I feel validated now. And yes, check out the recommendations. And I guess I could do a quick Q&A if anybody has any questions about what I got coming up, my projects, my tour, anything like that. now would be the time to ask. Like I said, I'm going to try to do this more often. You can go check out my website, danbublitzcomedy.com. That's where all my tour stuff is. You can go follow me on all social media, D Bublitz Comedy. Again, I'm going to try to be putting out more TikTok content along with some Instagram reels and stuff like that. I'm going to try to do more content once we get moved. My life has been in limbo because of the move, but we're getting there. There we get it there. What do we got? Any dates coming up in Houston? Not yet, but I would love to come to Houston. So if you know anybody that has a venue in Houston or does comedy, tell them about me because I would love to go to Houston. That would be great. I performed in Houston years and years and years ago, a long time ago actually, and it was a good time. So I'd love to come back. Um, all right. Well, with that said, I appreciate everybody for tuning into this live broadcast. Again, I'm going to try to do this weekly. It'll most likely be Sunday nights or Monday nights, depending on schedule. Um, just gotta see how my travel schedules are, things like that, and go from there. And so until next time, we'll see you next week. And I hope everybody has a good week and keep supporting live comedy. Oh, what do we got going on here? Drink joke story. Hey, what's going on? Drinks, jokes, storytelling. Thanks for tuning in. You're a little late. We're getting ready to wrap up. And Shannon Simmet, let's hook him up. Oh, perfect. I appreciate that. No worries. Thanks for tuning in and trying. We're going to be more consistent in the future. So make sure wherever you're watching this, make sure you're following that page. So if you're on Twitch, if you're watching it on YouTube, if you're watching it on Facebook through the Facebook page, make sure you're following those pages so you'll get notifications when I go live in the road or down the road. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next week. And keep being funny and all that jazz.